as you can see, out in the car.
We
So
can
I
hear you.
can
We
I
can
hear
hear you
you
very
well,
well.
but it's not the normal best um, background and so on. But we are studying Midrashim, and we have chosen two Midrashim. I'll start with the first one, and if Rabbi Shmuel won't come, we'll continue with that. We'll speak a little about that, the Midrash. So I would want to share um, um, here. I want to share the text. If you could see it now, it's
Yeah.
in Hebrew. I'll just make it a little smaller here. Okay. So the text speaks about mainly the connection between the end of last parasha and the start of this parasha. So if you could see, I think Rabbi Shmuel came in now. Uh, yes, I'll continue. So if we are seeing, if you could see the you see in the text now. This is the end of last week's parasha, and the end of last week's parasha uh, uh, speaks about how to do the altar, how to build it. And in the last sentence, it says, uh, do not ascend my altar by steps, that your nakedness may not be exposed upon it. And the explanation for this is, and if you see the drawings of the altar in the temple, the drawings will look like you have the altar, and then you have a kind of uh, um, um, a kind of how should I say how do you say ramp in English?
A ramp.
A ramp. See, the same. Okay. So instead of going up steps, the sentence tells us that we should have the ramp, because then, if you could think about old days, when someone would go up the stairs, you open your feet more than normal, or you can't hold your feet together. And then in old days, in the way you have your clothes on yourself, you would show your nakedness to the altar. And because of that, you have the ramp to where you could go with small steps up without needing to open your feet. And that will show respect to the altar, so we won't show our nakedness to the altar when we go on it. Okay, this is the halacha, the last halacha in the parasha of last week. Okay. Now, when we go on from last week, then we go over to this week where we have Ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. These are the rules that you shall set before them. So this explains that you should. It's the first sentence about all the mishpatim, all the rules that we have in the parasha. Many rules with many different topics that come just after we read last week about the receiving of the Torah. So the Midrash refers to one, the content of the last mitzvah that we wrote about, and the connection why these two mitzvot or Parashat Mishpatim is coming just after that one. Now we'll try to read it together here. Okay. Okay. Someone who could read? And we are in Midrash Rabbah Lamed, number 2, just to 32 in Midrash Rabbah, if you want to know where the Midrash is. The Midrash Rabbah is divided differently than the chapters, the Perakim we know from the Torah. It's mainly because the chapter we know from the Torah and the division is division according to actually a Christian division of the Torah. And so Midrash Rabbah was built differently. And because of that, it's 30, but it's not chapter 30. We use, as we saw before. Anyone who could read the Midrash? Yes? Was clapping wanting to read? Perfect, thank you.
Okay, wait, I'm just going to try to take off these emojis. Okay, I can't.
We like
Okay,
it.
I'll
It's
start.
nice with clapping. It's good.
What is written prior to the matter, you shall not ascend on the stairs to my altar, so that your nakedness will not be exposed upon it. Exodus 23. And it is written, and these are the ordinances. What does this matter have in common with that? What was the nakedness of the priest exposed? It is not written, but it's not written. Make for them linen trousers to cover the flesh of their nakedness.
Okay, let's stop here. So there are two questions here. Let's stop here. There are two questions. I'll start with the first one is easier to understand.
Hmm.
The question is, what does this matter have in common with that? Okay, what is exactly question? A question we see a lot in Midrashim. Why are these two mitzvot coming together after each other? Okay, when the one mitzvah is about the altar and not showing the nakedness, and because of that, not being able to have stairs, and the second one is speaking about the mitzvot that you should give and follow and the rules of mainly society and judges and so on. So what the question, that is the first question. The second question is actually very interesting when we go into the mitzvah itself. And here we have another quote. The quote it comes from is from Exodus 28, where it says how to make the clothes to the Kohanim. There it says, make for them linen trousers to cover the flesh of their nakedness. So the way they made the clothes for the Kohanim are doing so, the clothes are covering the nakedness. Okay. And based on that, it's hard to understand why the Torah tells us not to build stairs. Because if they have these kind of clothes, then they will never show their nakedness to the altar because they have the correct clothes on them. I will say, as we have today, okay? When we have clothes that makes that the nakedness is not shown downwards without going into details. So in that way, the Midrash is asking these two questions. Why? What is the problem if they have the correct clothes? Why is there a problem with the nakedness? Why should we have the ramp and we're not allowed to go upstairs? And question number 2, why is this mitzvah, the last mitzvah, connected to the Parashat Mishpatim that we are reading this Shabbat? And now we could read the answer of Rabbi Avina.
Rabbi Avina said, just as the Holy One blessed be he cautioned the priest to refrain from taking large steps a stop from the altar. Rather, they should walk with measured steps, so that the Holy One, blessed be he, cautioned the judges so that they should not take large steps in judgment.
Yeah. So here he, in a way, answers both questions together. It actually says not only walk with measured steps, but it says heel next to toe, as you can see here in the text. So what does Rabbi Avina say? He says there is another reason not to have stairs in the way up to the altar. Then the other reason for that is that we don't want people to take big steps. We said it because of the nakedness, but it's actually also correct without the nakedness. Okay, we could ask, okay, why the Torah said it, and it's an important question to ask. But he in the Midrash says there is another reason. Okay, he says the other reason is that you should be cautious when you go to the altar, not to take large steps, but you should rather go heel next to toe. It's not possible to go up the altar heel next to toe if it's stairs. In the stairs, you always have to jump. You have to jump from one level to another. You can't there is either here or there. And because of that, says Rabbi Avina, that's another explanation for why you can't have the stairs in the altar. And based on that explanation, why is it important for the Torah, according to his opinion, and according to the Midrash, to come with the halacha of the stairs just before Parashat Mishpatim? The reason is that it's also a very important lesson for our rules, or those who follow, or the judges who keep the rules. And because of that, it's so important that a judge who sits in court will not hurry to make any decision, okay, in the judgment, but rather really focus on not jumping over any step that is needed to do, so that the judgment will be more correct. And because of that, the Torah is connecting these two together. Now, first of all, I think it's an important lesson to have, generally, important lesson to have. It's an important lesson, first of all, when it comes to our attitude towards the altar, our attitude towards the holy. Because sometimes when we are full of energy and full of a feeling of wanting to go up to the altar, to go up to Hashem, we could make the mistake jumping over some levels. And in steps, you always jump over levels. And because of that, it's an important lesson to say it has to be a process with no stop. Just as it says here, heel next to toe. It has to be a continuing process up, without any jumping over any steps in the way, as we do with stairs. And of course, from there, it's also a very important lesson for us, or for the judges, I would say, as it says here, because judges, their decisions are very, very important. And based on that, if judges hurry to come to conclusions and don't do the whole process, because you could very fast think, I think I know the solution here. It seems like that. So here the Midrash says it's so important to learn from that to the judges, that things have to be gradual. Things have to go a step at a time, so that the judgment will be as correct as possible. And I want to take these two lessons even one more step ahead that I think is very, very important. I think it's important always, but I think it's especially important in our times because what we are taught in the world around us, and it affects every one of us, is to come to very fast conclusions. The world of I don't know where it starts. I'm not an expert on that. But let's say the world of TikTok is a world that wants to give us easy answers in a very complicated world. And because of that, we're all, and I say about all of us here, all of us in the Jewish, but also all of us in the world, we're all affected by a culture that tries to jump over all the steps of learning, of thinking, all the step of Midrash, where it comes from lidrosh, from the struggle of trying to understand better, but not trying to come to the answer too fast. And the world of TikTok leads us to a place where we think we understand fast, and then we have the answers, and many of us will then also come to the conclusion that all the others who don't see that, they're stupid and don't understand anything. And that's a language we hear more and more and more and more, unfortunately, even by people who, by us small people, if I could include everyone here, of course, they're very important people in front of me, but let's say small people who want to have our opinion about the world around us. But it goes up to the judges or the leaders. I could just refer to, I don't want to speak politics, but just heard Donald Trump, maybe the most powerful person in our time, and we could have very different opinions about him. But the way he speaks, the way he could just say today that Ukraine shouldn't start the war against Russia, said it like that. And I think he tried to make a point. I won't be his lawyer to explain him, because it's hard to understand why he said it. But the way you fast just say the world is like this, and I will now explain it like that, and you don't think, and you don't understand how things are complicated, and you think that you have all the answers or easy answers. Either if we are the one who are the judges, or everyone else, because we are all judges in the end. We judge the environment around us. We judge each other. We are judging ourselves sometimes also. So I think the lesson here of understanding that judgment has to go a step at a time. It's correct for us, it's correct for the judges, and it's also very correct for our journey towards the holiness that we want to find. An important lesson from, I say again, it's important when we learn the Midrashim in this setting to, on the one hand, to speak about, understand the content of the Midrash, but I really want to understand the way the Midrash is teaching us. So it takes the point that two things are coming after each other, and that has to tell us something. And it repeats itself a lot in many Midrashim. The question of the order of things is not without any purpose. And because of that, we learn many important lessons, very important lessons from this. Any comments, questions before we go on to the second Midrash we want to study today? Yes, not all together. But don't jump to conclusions too fast. But questions are not conclusions. They're good. Yes, Tikva.
I want to say that the ramp is straight on, and you go in with confidence and security. And the stairs is more. It's not the balance. Also, well, it came this thought in my mind. So
We say also that the stairs you're not always on both feet or on good ground all the time, in a way. It's true. But when I thought about it before the lesson, I thought that stairs, normally we think about that it's a faster way up, or no, it's a slower way up. The ramp you could run on. And here the Midrash takes it to the opposite, that you shouldn't run on, but you can't put your feet together all the ways on the stairs, something you could do in the ramp. Okay, so that's also a thought around that. Just because, yes, Michael.
Said
Mikael.
before that you when you go up not a ramp but a ladder, you don't always have 2 feet on the ground. So you can say that to go slowly up the ramp is to always keep the feet on the ground, and especially as you said, if even in spiritual matters you should not jump. You should be very much connected to the ground.
So as we say in Norwegian, probably I'll say it in English, ha bakke kontakt. It's also being connected to the ground when we go to the altar, and in a way it connects. I don't know if that's what you meant, Michael.
Yeah.
It connects the altar to it connects the altar to sorry.
You have the ladder of Jacob says that it has the feet on the ground and it goes up. Right, so it's always the feet on the ground.
You in a way you have to take the foot. You could try to like have them on the ground all the time, but in the end you have to take the feet up.
Yeah,
in one or
the
another
ladder
way.
is the ladder is well founded in the ground, even in
Yes.
Jacob's dream.
Yeah. Yes. Rav Shmuel, are you sharing the second midrash, or shall I do that?
Okay, thank you very much, Joav.
We'll wait just another some seconds, and if not, I will share the midrash, the second midrash.
The midrash, the part, the sentences that you just show us is the last one. If the itro, eller hur? Is the one, the last is not from Mishpatim. It's not the last one from the last week, or I'm looking. No, maybe I'm looking back.
It's in Mishpatim. It's the second one of Mishpatim. In Midrash Rabbah Lamed, or 30. That's where it is.
You have the text?
Yes, I could share it.
Thank you.
No, it's
Okay.
here. Just a moment. Sorry, it will take me a moment. Rav Shmuel, do you have it? Because it fell out for me. If you could share.
Okay. So I'll see if I can manage to use my phone for this. Okay, wait a second. Okay, I just want to show you Sefaria. Okay, this I don't want. I don't want to. Okay, that's enough. Just show you Sefaria. That's what I want to show you. Difficult because like the laptop didn't work. So. It's a bit difficult because I have to use my phone. My laptop stopped working. Can you get it back on?
Shmuel, is this the correct one?
Okay. Let's see.
Sorry for the complicated technical things. We both had technical issues today, either out in the way or with the internet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rav Shmuel.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. So maybe to start this midrash, I feel bad like jumping in. I didn't hear much of Joav's shiur. I'm sure it was very, very interesting. I know what he talked about because he gave me the sources in advance. Here I wanted to talk about very interesting midrash, which on the surface doesn't seem to have much to do with the parasha, but as we will see when we advance the midrash, I think it has quite a lot to do with the parasha. Now, the parasha Mishpatim, perhaps Rabbi Joav already explained to you, is really a parasha about laws, about judgments, about civil law, how to deal a person between another. Is laws about slaves and about stealing and about compensation and salaries and all sorts of things that are really questions of civil law, like you have in any society, everywhere in the world. In a way, you could say this is a very, I don't want to say this, but you could say it's a very unspiritual parasha. No, yeah. At the end of the parasha, there's a little bit of a spiritual happening. We're not going to go into that, but there's nothing mystical or godly. There are no angels. There are no miracles. Just telling you what happens in a Jewish society. And now, very interesting. What does the Midrash say? Would somebody like to read in English, please? Any volunteers? Anybody would like to read the text?
I can read.
Oh, please. Thank you.
Another matter, these are the ordinances, that is what is written, he declares his words to Jacob. One time, Kila said to the Emperor Hadrian, I wish to convert and to become a Jew. He said to him, that nation you wish to join, how much have I demeaned it? How much of its people have I killed? You wish to intermingle with the lowliest of nations. What did you see in them that you wish to convert? He said to them, the least among them knows how the Holy One, blessed be He, created the world, what was created on the first day, and what was created on the second day. How long it has been since the world was created, and upon what does the world stand? And their Torah is truth. He said to him, go study their Torah, but do not circumcise yourself. Aquila said to him, even the wisest man in your kingdom or a 100-year-old elder is unable to study their Torah if he is not circumcised. As it is written, he declares his words to Jacob, his statutes and ordinances to Israel. He did not do so with any other nation, but with whom? With the children of Israel.
Thank you very much. So this text is a story, presumably a true story, about a man called Aquila, like we saw, who decides to convert to Judaism. Who was Aquila? Just I was trying to research a bit. He's not a name that you see often in the Talmud. Some sort of Roman, obviously a Roman, obviously somebody was related or very strongly connected to the court because he could come and chat with Hadrian, who was the emperor. There's a very similar story in the Babylonian Talmud about Onkelos. Onkelos, the famous convert who translated the Torah into Aramaic. So I was just trying to research a bit. Seems to be different theories. Some say it's the same person. Some people say it's two different stories and two different people. But whoever it is, the story is quite simple. A Roman says he's convinced that the Torah is true, and he wants to become a Jew. Hadrian's answer is, obviously we are against the Jews, don't do it. And then he answers back something very spiritual, it seems to be, that the smallest Jewish child here understands something, that the smallest of them understands what God created. He understands things that you don't understand, even though you're a great emperor. That seems to be the implication. So I see greatness in this nation. And then, again, a very interesting answer from the emperor. Okay, you know what? Maybe there is some wisdom there. Go and study it, but don't do the Brit Milah. Don't do the circumcision. Also very interesting. What does the emperor mean by that? Okay, so study it, but does it mean don't become Jewish? Or does he mean first study it before you take any drastic steps of becoming Jewish? Not very clear. And then his answer back is, you cannot understand the Torah if you don't do Brit Milah. So really, I think there's a lot of questions in the Midrash in itself. But I think before we delve into these questions, we have to understand, what is this Midrash doing here in Parashat Mishpatim? So sometimes, I'll admit, not every Midrash is directly connected to the parasha. Sometimes, just like in the Talmud, we discuss one thing and we move on to another thing, and it could be just a story that, we don't have where to place it. You place it here. It might not be connected to the parasha. But that cannot be true, because if you could please just scroll up to the beginning of this Midrash. How did this piece start? Yeah, a little bit higher, please. Yeah, another matter, these are the ordinances. In Hebrew, Vele HaMishpatim. That means, here I'm going to explain the words of the Torah, Ele HaMishpatim. These are the ordinances. which is the beginning of our parasha. Yeah, our parasha starts with these are the ordinances, these are the judgments, these are the laws that you're going to put in front of the Jewish people. A text of civil law, and this is the introduction to it. So it's very strange. It seems to be the Midrash is starting by saying, I'm going to explain you a different explanation, another matter. Usually when we say another matter, davar acher, that means I'm offering you some insight. I'm offering an interpretation of the text of the Torah. And then the Midrash Rabbah tells us a story about a Roman who wanted to convert because he was convinced by the Torah and the creation of the world, and he was amazed by the knowledge and the wisdom of the Jews. And this has nothing to do with our parasha, which is the parasha about civil laws, about people interacting. So that was really my first question. What's exactly going on in this Midrash? Why is it coming here? So I was looking a little bit in the explanations, the commentaries of the Midrashim. It's a very interesting point. This pasuk, these are the ordinances, these are the rules you shall place in front of them. The Talmud, the Jewish tradition, teaches us that when the verse says, these are the ordinances you shall place in front of them, it's being specific and saying, when you have an argument, when you have a case of civil law, you should go to the Beit Din. You should go to the Jewish judges who are going to judge according to Torah, not to a non-Jewish court. Very interesting explanation or from of this verse. Asher tasim lifneim. The verse, these are the ordinances you shall place in front of them. It's not written here in the Midrash, the whole verse, but that's how the verse finishes. You shall place these laws in front of them. That means if you have a mishpat, you have a judgment, you have a court case, take it in front of the dayanim, the Jewish judges will take the decision according to the Torah. And, by the way, this is halacha. Even today, in Israel or in other places where there are larger Jewish communities, you'll have a Beit Din, and two Jews will come to Beit Din about whatever argument they have, a financial argument, and the Beit Din will settle the argument. Of course, it's completely legal, just like in any country. A person can decide, have a mediator, and to mediate their argument. And if there are Jews who keep the Torah, that's what they'll do. They'll go to a Beit Din, and the Beit Din will judge. And according to Halakha, that is what you should do. Only in a case where, there's something that the Beit Din cannot do anything about. There's a crime, or that the person has to be stopped, he's dangerous, or there is a situation where one Jew refuses to listen to the Beit Din. So then the person can, of course, under certain circumstances, deal with the courts, yeah. But when we're talking about a simple argument between two Jews, who is right, who has to pay, who transaction, what are your obligations, the address to go is the Beit Din. And it's very interesting because Talmud takes it a step further and says this law is absolute to the extent that if you were to know that in a certain law there is no difference, the law of the Torah and the law book in whichever country, in Finland, in Norway, they're going to say exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter. You should still go to the Beit Din. The Talmud says there's something special about Torah law, something special about the mishpatim of the Torah, even if a lot of them are very similar to laws you will find in other countries. And actually, sometimes they could even be identical. There could definitely be a case where what the Dayan would judge in a Beit Din and what a judge would judge in a court, in a normal secular court, would be exactly the same. But still, no, go to the Dayan, go to the person who's judging according to Torah law. Okay? Well, why am I bringing all of this information? I think when we understand that there's something else in these laws of mishpatim. That means when we have civil law, and when other countries, other nations, other people have civil law, we actually have something different. There is a godly dimension here. You are accepting God's Torah. You're accepting Hashem's desire. You're fulfilling Hashem's desire how to run this world. And now if you go into the story of Aquila and the Roman emperor, he starts with saying something very spiritual, right? The Jews, they understand about the creation of the world. And it's amazing. And then the emperor says, okay, so go and study the Torah, but you don't need to become Jewish. The wisdom is there, the book is there, just study it. Yeah? In a way, I was thinking, if we think about this whole system of judgments, you could have that. You could have a non-Jewish, anybody, anywhere, could say, the Jews are very wise. I like the Torah. It's got very just laws. Especially, I'm thinking now about the Mishpatim, about the parasha, right? Very just interpersonal laws, which make a lot of sense. And I want to learn about them because I want to incorporate it in our Torah system. So I was just maybe like the emperor could say, there's wisdom there, study it. But then he says, no, it doesn't work like that. You need to do the Brit Milah. That means there's something else here. That's how I am understanding. Because if it's just knowledge, what's the difference? Brit Milah or not Brit Milah? A book, everybody can read a book. Yeah, and I've heard even some university professors who became very knowledgeable in Talmud and in Jewish law and everything. So a book, everybody can study a book. I think there is something else going on here. To understand the Torah, you need something else. Circumcision, accepting the mitzvot, making a covenant with God. There is another step here that in order to properly really understand the Torah. And then he finishes with this verse from Psalms. He declares his words to Jacob, his statutes and ordinances to Israel. He did not do so with any other nation, but with whom? With the children of Israel. So when I look at it, Midrash, I'm actually seeing that it's a model which is perhaps quite hard to understand even for somebody from the outside. It's an idea that Hashem's that when you have an argument between two people, when the court punishes somebody for stealing, they're not just upholding a society like this is what you have to do because otherwise will be anarchy. They're doing something much deeper. They're bringing God into this world. They're doing a mitzvah. Not a mitzvah is just as holy as the circumcision or as tefillin or Sefer Torah. There's no difference. We have a mitzvot here of lending money to the poor or whatever it is. This is just as holy as saying the prayers in the morning. But we don't. Maybe most of us, definitely people from the outside, wouldn't associate that necessarily with holiness in the same way. So this was just my thoughts, but I would be very happy to hear your thoughts, everybody's thoughts on this. I think there's a lot of questions and problems in the Midrash, and I think maybe I've addressed some of them, but I think there's still a lot that I don't understand in this Midrash. So please, I'm very interested in hearing your ideas.
I could maybe start and let others come also in. Originally, we wanted to study the Midrashim in the opposite order, also to begin to speak about how the basic of how do we look on laws, Jewish laws, and then putting another layer of what we studied before. But in many ways, I don't think it's so, according to the way I see it, it's both of them speak about wrong ways to approach the law. So if we spoke about earlier about the problem of jumping over steps and not taking it a step at a time, I think there are many very important lessons we learn from this Midrash. I could try to think about three. It's in the same direction, Rav Shmuel, as you said, but from maybe another angle. The first thing is, I think we learn from this is what he says that you can't study Torah if you're not circumcised. It's explaining us that if you're not a part of the law, you can't learn it. It's a little like, not exactly, don't judge a person before you're in his foots or in his shoes. Because thinking that you could learn Torah from the outside and then you understand it, you'll never learn about it. You will really understand if you don't choose to begin with to be a part of it. Choose to be a part of it, then you could study Torah. Because you see it as a Torah, and then you could also misunderstand, as you said, Rav Shmuel, that the Torah is a great system of justice and law and society. And you could find a lot of great system of justice and law and society, but the way we see things in the Torah is that we all do all those things also because what we saw in the Midrash, we believe on Hashem that created the world. That's why we keep that. So we don't keep it only as a society thing or a justice thing. We do it also as a belief thing. And because of that, people from the outside will always learn the Torah in a wrong way, in a way that sees it from a totally wrong. And it's also, if we take it just out of the world of studying Torah, in any case, when we want to judge someone else, we read their books, and then we think we understand them, positive or negative. And you could never really understand if you're not a part of that. And of course, that's very correct for the Torah. So in the one hand, I think that's a very important lesson of how we see the laws and how we see the study of the Torah, the study of the laws, the needing of being a part. Another thing that I think is a very important lesson that comes throughout this is the lesson that knowledge is not it all, okay? Often we think that the answer for hate, for misjudgment, for a lack of goodness in the world is that we don't know enough, okay? We don't know enough. And if we will know more, then, so if there's anti-Semitism, people have to learn about Judaism. That will make them understand. So learn about Judaism is a little like what we saw now. And we could see throughout the history that knowledge is not the answer for hate. Because people could use the knowledge to hate. If we go to the worst units in the Nazi regimes, you had people with doctors from university. So they were very knowledgeable, but their heart was in the wrong place. And then you could take the knowledge towards an evil place, a very evil place. And also, and I don't compare, it's important not to compare with Nazis too often, when it's not necessary. But also in our days, the world is full of knowledge. Okay? If I spoke about the TikTok before, that we jump to conclusions because things are so fast. In the second hand, we really have, I could sit here in my car in the end of I don't know where, and I have connection with so much knowledge. No one before us, just a generation ago, could have a connection to learn, read, listen, and so on. But does that make the world a better world? Does that make us better believers in Hashem that created us and what we have to do according to that? It doesn't give any security about that. I think Yuval Harari, he wrote about that sometimes you could have too much knowledge. Okay, too much knowledge could also be a problem, and I learned the world has to understand that, because then you don't know what to choose in the world of knowledge, and this comes through this, because the emperor told him you could just learn. So learn from being from the outside, number one, but also think that you could learn without circumcising yourself, without connecting yourself. And circumcising is also has in many Jewish texts speaking about orlat halev, the circumcising of the heart, also not only to being connected by saying I want to serve Hashem, I want to be a part of the system, as we said, but also trying to find the good things in everything, and the believing in Hashem in everything. And that's what the emperor says in this interesting Midrash. He speaks about that even the youngest in Israel knows the story about God creating the world. And it's not about knowledge. It's about the belief. It's about the connection. Then you could begin to turn the knowledge in the way of the Torah. So that's a little sum of I think we could learn from this Midrash that are very, very important lessons when we try to find the right way to be and to study Torah.
Thank you, Rav Yoav. I mean, that's something that what your point about, like, you can't understand things from the outside properly, is something I experience again and again when you read texts written by non-Jews about Judaism, or sometimes even about Jews, but we're not practicing. Yeah, I just remember they study, world religions, part of the curriculum in the schools. So we're looking at they're saying the textbook, the chapter about Jews, they say a central part of the Jewish service is the reading of the Torah. It's true, you could say that, but it's not really true. Really, the service, the tefillah, is tefillah. And there's another ritual called the reading of the Torah, which we sort of do after the tefillah, or between Shacharit and Musaf, between two services, two tefillot. So you can read ideas, you can understand it. If you don't experience it and do it, you're not really gonna grasp the concept properly. But that was very interesting. I would like to hear, I don't want to say the audience, because this is not a lecture, so it's not really an audience. We're all the same in the Bet Midrash. But I would like to hear some more voices, maybe, in this text. I think it's a very interesting text, because it's about two non-Jews discussing Judaism. That's what it is. So I think I would like to hear what ideas what did you make you think?
I don't know if you see everyone, but Esther has her hand up.
Okay.
I have two questions. Do we understand the Torah by like da'at as a knowledge, or do we understand by heart? And the second question is Torah going through nefesh, ruach, and neshama? So which parts of our spiritual, you understand these levels, is it going through everything? Can we understand Torah with only like a text or heart? So, and then how is it connected to nefesh, ruach, and neshama?
Okay. So first, I'm not a Kabbalist. I don't know all the different levels of the soul that you were referring to. I've heard of these concepts. But I can say, as Rav Yoav wants to add more, but I can say that all of it is true. I mean, the Torah has many levels. There is the text, the simple, just reading the text and being able to translate, which is a very important skill. Before you start translating, even just being able to read the Hebrew letters correctly, that's one level of understanding. Knowing the musical cantillation that we teach about it, there's also one level of understanding. Actually being able to translate the words, that's another level of understanding. And I think at every level, you get something else, right? Is the Torah intellectual or emotional? I think that was part of your question. I think that's a really interesting question. I think on the surface, the study of Torah is an intellectual exercise, right? It's you're trying to understand God's wisdom. But I think when a person has received God's wisdom intellectually, I think that will affect his emotions, because it will change a person's outlook on life. If Rav Yoav wants to add anything to that.
Just shortly, the quote from the Psalm from Tehillim, Reshit Chochma Yirat Hashem, saying that the start of the knowledge is the fear of God. And it doesn't mean, as Rav Shmuel said, that he doesn't have an intellectual activity studying. It's an intellectual activity, but the question, back to what we saw in the Midrash, is what is the base? Why are we seeking the knowledge? What is the goal of the knowledge? So if the knowledge is for the knowledge itself, then it could be directed to different ideas, and the knowledge of the Torah has to be based on the fear of God, the belief in God, and the understanding of the meaning for us. Then we could begin to go into the details of the intellectual things. Yes. Maybe I will try to finish this lesson. First of all, again, we're both sorry for technical problems. Made this start and a little up down, but the study is important to continue, even if when it's a little hard. I want to say we try to understand Midrashim and the way it's spoken. Maybe it's complicated to understand the questions in the Midrashim for those who are not used to it, but through this study, we really want you to go into the world of Midrashim and the way the Midrash has seen the text and has learned very deep meanings from our belief, from our emunah, from our tradition, through this way of studying. In the end, I want to say, especially from the quote from the Midrash we just learned, and we have to connect ourselves to the situation we, Am Yisrael, are in, speaking about the children that circumcised and their knowledge, and that he declares his words to Jacob through the children, or with the children of Israel, and the understanding of children of Israel, of course, is the people of Israel. But we're waiting, unfortunately, tomorrow to see children of Israel coming back from being hostages, and according to all, if we have to have our feet on the ground, we have to be prepared for them not coming back alive. And it's breaking our hearts, and maybe again seeing the connecting to the heart and not the knowledge in the things we don't have any answers for, why and how and so on. And based on that, also praying to Hashem that we'll see everyone come home alive as fast as possible, and that we, through our heart and our fear of Hashem and our commitment to the study of the Torah and to the living according to that, will make our effort to having a better world, and that Hashem will not let things like that happen anymore. We're really praying for all the people who are connected to this, and it's hard for me to find the words, but we have to be prepared for that as a part of the people of Israel. So thank you all for participating in this Midrash, Bet Midrash, learning Midrash in the Bet Midrash. Good evening to everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Rav Yoav.
Thank you.
Thank you. תודה רבה.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.